Apparently, I started to act like a drunk child. I remember feeling really numb and then feeling dizzy. My coworkers said my words slurred so horribly that they couldn't understand. I tried to stand up and walk, but it was more like a weak limp until I slumped back into the chair. I have mixed feelings about laundry day. It's a simple thing, a chore really. I gather my clothing together and trot down the street to a local laundromat. I live in a predominantly Mexican neighborhood, so while the clothes slosh in the washer and tumble in the dryer, I watch telenovelas, or the Saint of Guadalupe stories. I'm not fluent in Spanish, but I know enough to get the gist of the shows. But what other people see as a chore, I see as a sign of my independence. I have multiple sclerosis, or MS. Having MS is like this. People don't have to consciously remind their heart to beat or their stomach to digest. It's all involuntary. Imagine how much time we'd waste reminding our heart to pump. But you do have to consciously think about opening a door or gripping a fork. MS messes up my body's wiring. Because MS disrupts this communication between my brain and my body, sometimes my body moves when I don't want it to, or it won't move when I want it to. That's why laundry is so special. You might just see me shoving clothes into a machine or folding clothes into a basket, but what I see is a day of control. I noticed the first symptoms a long time ago, but I played them off as nothing. I'm a bit stubborn that way. One day, I randomly fell. I'm just clumsy, I told people. But I still didn't understand why I fell or why my legs felt the weird way that they did. I didn't understand until later that the fall was my first episode of MS. The first doctor I went to was a joke. Not only did it take forever for him to actually see me despite an empty office, when he did see me, he was vulgar. He seemed to think my roommate was my girlfriend. She definitely isn't, and it was even weirder that he just assumed we were a couple. He even joked my symptoms were a result of my roommate and me being rough and intimate. Sometimes I have pain in my limbs, I told the doctor. But then other times they feel numb. Well, that could be from lots of things, said this man calling himself a doctor. And sometimes I get dizzy and my vision gets blurry, but then it'll go away eventually and then I'm back to normal. You might not just be drinking enough water. He dismissed my lack of pain and prescribed 200 milligrams of Tylenol. As my roommate and I left, the nurse pulled me aside. It might just be a pinched nerve, she said. And she handed me the business card of another doctor. At least someone in that office was looking out for me. Soon after that terrible visit, I was running across the street. I was late, and I saw this woman looking at me really awkwardly, like she was afraid of me or something. Confused, I looked around. Nothing. Then I saw my own right arm. My arm waved vigorously, except I wasn't controlling it. My muscles just spasmed without any action on my part. Alarmed but not worried, I was convinced it was a pinched nerve. I mean, that's what the nurse had said, right? The second doctor I went to was much, much better. This doctor was kind and listened earnestly to me. I told her about the pain, about the numbness, and about the spasms. And if I really exert myself, I added, I felt like my body rebels. It just gives out. She told me she thought it was MS, that multiple sclerosis was actually more common than I might think, especially in women. She suggested I go to a neurologist. Back at work that same day, my manager said, "You were gone quite a while." He always teased me in a playful way. We got along really well, and I think he had a crush on me, but that's a whole different story. I knew he'd be a sympathetic ear, and so I didn't mind telling him about my appointment. As I told him more and more, the facts of this entire situation hit me more and more. And by the end of the story, I was sobbing in my boss's office. He let me cry for a bit, and he was really kind, but I've never had a stronger desire to just shut up and get back to work. I visited a neurologist, and he sent me for some MRIs and other scans. The wait seemed to last forever to get my results back, but finally the day came. I wasn't worried anymore. I just wanted to know what was wrong with me and how to fix it. I sat across the table from my doctor, whose face had the usual serious doctor's expression. Then he said it. You have relapsing, remitting multiple sclerosis. Over time, your nerves will become inflamed and degrade their insulation. When this happens, well, you'll see the symptoms you've already experienced. The neurologist and I discussed some medical options. I'll be honest, he said. There's no cure and not much to do to treat MS. However, with relapsing remitting MS, you'll have times in which you exhibit no symptoms at all, and other times when you'll lose functionality. But over time, the symptoms and the MS itself will get progressively worse. I sat waiting to begin discussing treatments and next steps, only to hear this. No cure? Will get progressively worse? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. There are therapies that help, the doctors continued. There are medications that suppress your immune system so it doesn't attack your own nervous system as the nerves become inflamed. Other medication can also help reduce the number of relapses, though they can't stop them completely. But what we can do is create a tailor-made treatment just for you. When I heard this, it gave me some hope. So, although it can be treated, maybe it's something that can be managed and kept under control with the right treatment. After this, things did stay relatively under control. Then, in November, at what I thought was a normal day of work, I started to lose control of my arm. I walked, as normally as possible, to the bathroom, breathing deep and trying to calm myself down more than anything else. I hid in the bathroom and just tried to get through this episode. But what started as a loss of control in one arm turned into both arms rebelling. I tried to wash my hands. Both hands were not cooperative, so imagine two ragdoll arms rubbing underwater. A coworker saw me and asked if I was okay. Of course, I said I was fine, but she knew something was up. I hate being the center of attention, so I tucked myself into a corner of the break room. I knew enough to know I shouldn't hide in case something really bad happens. I took up my phone, hoping to make it look like I was just taking a regular break. But it took all my effort, and I barely even unlocked my phone's touchscreen. I wanted to cry at how useless I was, but I didn't cry. Like I said, I didn't want to attract attention. I didn't really know what happened next, but I found out from my coworkers later that I started to act like an intoxicated child. I remember feeling really numb and then feeling dizzy. My coworkers said my words slurred so horribly that they couldn't understand. I tried to stand up and walk, but it was more like a weak limp. My hands and arms went spastic, and I was incredibly clumsy. Someone called 911 and I was rushed to the ER. By the time I saw the doctor in the ER, I could walk again. The dizziness was gone, and I was feeling sort of normal again. I had hoped I would be able to go home soon. How naive of me. Unfortunately, I ended up getting more MRIs and hooked up via IV to steroids to control my muscle spasms. I spent 5 days in the hospital, but that time in the hospital wasn't really relaxing. I grew afraid of just going out. Literally, I was afraid of leaving the hospital at all. I constantly thought my body would reject me, my legs would ignore me, my arms would rebel, my own words would betray me. This fear is common, the doctor said. Just as your nerves aren't sending the right signals to your muscles, they're also not sending the right signals to your brain. The fear and sadness got so bad that the doctors prescribed me with medication. If it wasn't for my dog, I would not have gone outside at all during that time. And my dog wasn't the only source of really amazing support. My boyfriend, we started dating less than a year before all of this, stayed with me at the hospital. My mom, who suffered from her own history of physical issues, came and stayed with me once I left the hospital. She went with me to all my subsequent hospital checkups. My friends and coworkers raised over $2,000 in 3 days to help me pay my medical bills. Some friends came to stay with me when my sadness got so bad, I started having dark, negative thoughts. I'm so thankful to all of them. The fear of flare-ups still lingers, even though I haven't had an episode in a while. But my body is different. I get fatigued easier now, and I can't do the same things at the same pace that I used to. I worry I'll have another episode at any time, especially somewhere in public. But every day, with special thanks to my friends and family, I wake up and get to work. My MS will never go away, and it may slow me down, but it doesn't stop me from enjoying all the small things in life, like walking to the laundromat and folding my clothes. Even the little things can bring a lot of joy.